Take another look at that. You get a guy up, and I'm not saying that former federal prosecutor isn't a good guy at what he does, but according to Steve Kallas, who joins us now, he doesn't have the law right. Steve, go ahead. Explain what you just explained to me. Go ahead.
Good to be with you, Mike.
Thank you.
The problem is, and the whole problem here is 2 years ago, and New Yorkers all know this, they had the big gun, we want to make this harder. 2 years ago, they changed the law in New York State.
Right, with that,
supported it.
So the federal prosecutor didn't know that, okay.
Well,
he must not have known it, but what you're saying is what used to be a D is now a C.
Yes, that was the change in the law 2 years ago, October 31st, 2 years ago. They turned the D into a C. You do not need any intent. If you have a loaded handgun on you in New York City, that is a C felony, mandatory 3.5. Now, I can tell you that the policy in New York County, which is Manhattan, is that they can plead down the C to the D. The D has a mandatory minimum of 2 years.
And what is the D? And what you can plead? So he could plead the two. He could plead the D, but the D would still give him a mandatory 2-year sentence, right?
Right, and while they'll do that in Manhattan, I don't think they're going to do that in this case because of what Bloomberg said, among other things.
All right, now, if you're Plaxico Burress here, Steve, we're talking with Steve Kallas, who's a New York City attorney. He's on Rick Wolf a lot and does a lot of stuff with him. If you were and I don't want to make you amateur attorney here. I mean, I don't want to make you part of this case or anything, but if you were looking at this, and I know that his attorney's a high-priced guy, so I'm sure he knows his way around the defense stuff. He's a high-priced defense attorney. What would you do for Burress here? Try to get him in front of a trial, figuring that because he's a giant, he might get a break with a trial, even though the case is overwhelming? It looks like you got incredible evidence. He shot himself, so obviously he had a gun. He admitted the guns in his book, so, I mean, by his own words. So a book came out last year, and he talked about guns in a book. What would you do here if you were his defense attorney?
I think the fight's going to be much earlier, frankly. If he gets indicted after a grand jury on a C that's just carrying a loaded firearm, which is a C now, he's going to have an unbelievably difficult time on trial. What you could hope for is there'd be some kind of pre-indictment plea, but I don't think, again, given what Bloomberg said and what the condition is and who Plaxico Burress is, I don't think there's a whole lot. Now, can he take a shot with the jury? Yeah, he only needs one guy. You know, he only needs one guy to say he's innocent. But the facts are very simple here. Keep in mind now, Mike, there were 2 C felonies. One has some intent, and that's going to be difficult. But I'm focusing on the second one.
He has no intent. I can't see any intent here. I don't see any intent.
Right, so. And I don't know that, you know, maybe other facts will come out. I think you're right based on what we know. There was none. But the second one that he's charged with, remember he's charged with 2, is simply the one that used to be a D. It's now a C, and all it is carrying a loaded firearm in New York.
If you were going to look in a crystal ball, does Plaxico Burress do time here?
If I had to give you an answer to that, the answer would be yes. We don't know what's going to happen. He's innocent until proven guilty. He hasn't been convicted. You know the drill with all of that stuff.
Right.
Having said that, if they go to trial, this could be at some level a very simple case. He had the gun. He shot
What
himself.
is the mayor? Now, this is the mayor's pet deal, right? This is something that Why would a mayor against a prominent athlete? I mean, I know he wants to make an example here, but this is the mayor's pet deal here, right? The mayor is very big on this gun law, right?
Right. Personally, I don't think it's right what he said. That's just me personally. He shouldn't have said that, in my opinion. He's the mayor. He can do pretty much whatever he wants. He got the term limits removed. I mean, this is a powerful guy, obviously.
This is a powerful mayor, and this is a pet project of his, obviously, right?
Yes. Remember they had the press conference last year, Mike, where they held up the big signs, guns equal 3.5
years?
Yeah,
one equals 3.5, yeah.
Right. If you go in the subway in New York, you'll see them all the time. They're all over the place. But that was the exact purpose for the change of the law, so that if you did have a loaded firearm, you could not plead to a misdemeanor and maybe get probation. You had to plead down only to a D.
Now, talk to me about the pre-indictment stuff. If you were what can you do? What can they do in this stage, Steve? And let's say the worst happens to him quickly. The NFL suspends him. Or the Giants cut him, or whatever happens here, which is not going to make him look good. Now you're his attorney. What do you try to do here? I mean, what can you possibly do to work this case, especially with the mayor's words hanging over your head?
Well, again, very difficult given the situation and the mayor's words. But, you know, there might be some lesser charge he could convince these guys to let his client plead to, that maybe he could either get less time or maybe he could get it down to a misdemeanor and probation. I don't think that's realistic on this fact pattern, Mike. But if there is going to be something like that, It's not going to happen after he gets indicted for the C felony of possessing a loaded firearm because, again, there's very little leeway then. And this is a pretty, frankly, simple case just on the gun. If you have a gun, and let me talk about what the professor said. Plaxico got searched. Remember, they had the metal detector, and he went up and told the guards. So there's going to be testimony from the guards. Yeah, he had the gun when he walked into the club. He told us he had it. So forget the finding the gun.
Right, and he took the bullets out of the gun too. Right. He took the magazine out of the security guard took the magazine out of the gun.
Right. The bigger constitutional issue, it's an issue. Do I think it can work in New York? No. It's also going to cost you, $1 million, $1.5 million to go all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, there was a Supreme Court case, and that's true, but that's unrealistic as well. And I'll tell you one more thing. Maybe you read this today. There's a fascinating thing in Gary Myers' column in the news where Gary Myers said that Plaxico Burress told him, Gary Myers, last year that I can't bring my gun up from Florida to New Jersey because I don't have a permit for him. So when some prosecutor sees that in the Daily News and someone says, oh, he didn't know, they're going to go, hold it now. You told Gary Myers last year that you couldn't bring the gun from Florida to Jersey. So all these things are long shots, frankly, but I just really wanted to be clear because this is the big problem here. The law was changed 2 years ago. What used to be a D is now a C. If you have a loaded firearm in your pocket in New York, poof, that's it. It's a C felony. It's not a conversation.
And so this is a very tough, even with, and we're very programmed, Steve. We're very programmed. We're talking with Steve Kallas, who's a New York City attorney. We're very programmed to believe that the rich and famous can buy justice. It does not look like that's the case here.
Well, it doesn't, but I will say this, and you probably know this, Mike. This Ben Brafman, he got off P. Diddy in that 1999 shooting.
He beat the jury, though, right?
Right. He beat the jury. Now, I don't know how he's going to do that here, but he beat the jury in 2001. Those were better facts, though, because I think those witnesses against P. Diddy had filed lawsuits against him.
They made him look like they were all looking to clean up in a civil case.
Exactly. And what's going to happen here is you're just going to have security guards. Antonio Pierce, if he does cooperate, as your other buddy told you, if he does cooperate, he'll have to say, yeah, Burress had a gun.
One of the cops told me that one of the cops from the city who I talked to told me, he said, listen, it's going to be simple with Burress. He cooperates, no problem. He causes us one bit of grief, and he's going to have a long couple of weeks.
Right, with Pierce, you mean?
Yes, with Pierce. Right. They told that it'll be simple with Pierce. He cooperates. He won't have any issues. He won't miss a game. If he doesn't, he'll have a long month.
Right, and that's what the negotiation, that's why his attorney is in there, because that's what he's going to have to testify to. I didn't know when we were going, but I saw at the club he had one. He shot himself. What can I say?
But basically, he's going to have to do that if he wants to play football this year, that's for sure.
I think that's true, with respect to the league. And, the Giants have to clean up this mess by, I think, keeping Pierce, who was just a good guy.
No, Pierce is not an issue, I don't think, here. I really don't, Steve, see that at all. But Plaxico, I'm just waiting. I expect the shoe to drop very quickly with the Giants with him. I don't even think it's an issue anymore. They ran out, their luck ran out with Plaxico a long time ago. They tried to push it as long as they could. They went really too far with him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I understand, Mike. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands.
Very good job. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Very good job by Steve Kallas. And again, we're back now to not painting a very good picture. Because I figured if the mayor was going to speak like that, why would he do that if he thought that he had that easy and out? He doesn't have that easy and out. And maybe the federal guy didn't know the law was changed. It's possible. That's what I mean. These things are so, they change all the time. I mean, the law stuff is so crazy. You get 10 people, they look at things 10 different ways.